Observe the pictures.
These raw materials can be used to produce alcohol. How is alcohol produced from these raw materials?
Let us find out. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to describe the process of producing alcohol.
Is produced from food like sugarcane, rice, grapes and barley through a process known as fermentation.
What is fermentation?
Fermentation is a chemical process in which organic molecules are broken down into simpler substances. This process occurs in the presence of enzyme in an anaerobic condition. For example, glucose is broken down by yeast into ethanol and carbon dioxide. Let us see how fermentation takes place, resulting in the formation of alcohol. Yeast is added to a glucose solution extracted from food like sugarcane, rice, grapes or barley. This mixture is left in a warm place for several days in an airtight container. What is the function of yeast in this mixture? Why is an airtight container used in this process? The enzymes from yeast called zymase act as a catalyst to break down glucose into alcohol and carbon dioxide. An anaerobic condition is needed for the fermentation process, hence the airtight container. To get alcohol, this fermented mixture is distilled. The alcohol produced is called ethanol. Let us carry out an activity. We will study how alcohol is produced by fermentation. You are given these materials for the activity. 50 grams sugar, 250 milliliters of distilled water, 5 grams of yeast, and some lime water. You are given these apparatus for the activity. 250 milliliters conical flask, a 1-hole rubber stopper with delivery tube, a test tube, and a test tube rack. Follow this procedure. Dissolve 50 grams of sugar in 250 milliliters of distilled water. Pour the sugar solution into a conical flask. Add 5 grams of yeast to the sugar solution. Shake the mixture. Pour some lime water into the test tube until it is half full. Close the conical flask with a rubber stopper and delivery tube. Insert the other end of the delivery tube into the lime water. Leave the setup for 3 days. Observe the mixture in the conical flask and the lime water in the test tube after 3 days. What happened to the mixture? What is the smell of the mixture? What is the color of the lime water? Record your observations in your practical book. Make a conclusion based on your observations. Click Check Answer when you have finished. In the beginning of the activity, there are bubbles in the mixture. The mixture does not have the smell of alcohol. The lime water is colorless. After 3 days, there are more bubbles in the mixture. The mixture has the smell of alcohol. The lime water has turned milky. The bubbles in the mixture and the smell of alcohol show that fermentation has taken place. The alcohol produced is called ethanol. The change in the color of the lime water shows that carbon dioxide is released during fermentation. When a sugar solution is fermented by yeast, alcohol and carbon dioxide are produced. Alcohol produced during fermentation contains water. Distillation is used to obtain alcohol. What is distillation? Distillation is the process used for separating a liquid from a mixture of liquids with different boiling points. Alcohol can be separated from water because their boiling points are different. Thus, alcohol is separated from the fermented mixture. Alcohol that vaporizes is then condensed into liquid. Let us carry out an activity to see how the fermented mixture is distilled to get ethanol. Click on the picture to start. We will study the process of separating ethanol from the mixture through distillation. You are given these materials for the activity. 250 milliliters of fermented mixture of ethanol and water. You are given these apparatus for the activity. Thermometer. Liebig condenser with rubber tubings. 250 milliliters conical flask. Distilling flask. Bunsen burner. Tripod stand. Wire gauze. One-hole rubber stopper. Distillation adapter. Porcelain chips. And retort stands. Set up the distilling apparatus as shown. Pour the fermented mixture of ethanol and water into the distilling flask. Add some porcelain chips into the distilling flask. This is to prevent bumping during heating. Place the wire gauze on the tripod stand. Place the distilling flask so that it rests on the tripod stand. Clamp the distilling flask firmly to the retort stand. Close the distilling flask with a rubber stopper inserted with a thermometer. Adjust the thermometer so that the bulb is at the same level as the side arm. This is to ensure that the vapor surrounds the bulb and the distillation temperature can be taken. Attach one end of the Liebig condenser to the side arm of the distilling flask. Clamp the Liebig condenser firmly to another retort stand. Attach a distillation adapter to the other end of the Liebig condenser. Make sure the opening faces downwards. Position the conical flask below the distillation adapter. Connect the rubber tubing at the bottom of the Liebig condenser to a tap so that water can flow through it. Place the rubber tubing at the top of the Liebig condenser into a sink to allow the water to flow out. Place the Bunsen burner under the distilling flask. Have your teacher check the setup before starting the distillation process. Turn on the water tap to let water flow through the Liebig condenser. The water in the Liebig condenser provides a cooler environment so that the hot vapor condenses into the liquid form. Light up the Bunsen burner to heat the mixture in the distilling flask. Record your observations. Record the temperature when the first drop of condensed vapor falls into the conical flask. This is the temperature at which ethanol is distilled. What is the color of the distillate? Turn off the Bunsen burner when the temperature starts rising quickly. Click Check Answer to compare your observations. The temperature when the first drop of condensed vapor falls into the conical flask is 78 degrees Celsius. Distillation occurs at 78 degrees Celsius. The distillate is colorless. The ethanol obtained by fermentation can be separated through the process of distillation. You have been provided with the apparatus to carry out the distillation of alcohol. Set up the apparatus for this process. Drag and drop the apparatus into the correct places to complete the setup. Alcohol is prepared from food such as sugar cane and grapes through a process called fermentation. Fermentation is a chemical process in which glucose is broken down by yeast into alcohol and carbon dioxide. This process occurs in an anaerobic condition. The fermented mixture is distilled to get alcohol. Other methods to produce alcohol. Get into groups of 5. Find out one other possible method to produce alcohol. Refer to books and the Internet. Prepare a report. Present your findings to the class.